Hey, welcome back, you guys. This is Brett from You Bloom, and again, today we are going to do our Q&A. We're looking at Q&A for the section on concretizing your resistance. Now, as you know, I like to kind of summarize, start off with a kind of overview so you get clarity and um, distinction on what we're doing and what are the tools we're really trying to learn here. Now, this is my last video here in the series, and you've heard a lot. You've heard a lot from me. You've heard a lot from Dr. Skinner. You've heard a lot from Amy. You've been working on a lot of stuff, and hopefully, what you've seen along the way is you've seen a lot of you. You've seen a lot of your patterns that aren't necessarily useful or helpful, or maybe patterns that are keeping you stuck, um, patterns that are keeping you maybe in pain or keeping you anxiety. And so, what you're really here to do, what any of us are here to do, is create change. However, as we create change, there's resistance to any kind of change. If you were going to change your diet and start eating different foods, you'd feel inside of yourself resistance. If you're going to start exercising every day and you aren't already doing that, and this is something new for you, you're going to feel resistance. Anything that you change in your life, you're going to feel resistance over. This, you're going to feel a lot of resistance over because it's just natural. Your brain is wired. It's almost like it's become a habit. And maybe because of the years and years and years of trauma you've gone through, the habit is living in fear. And maybe the habit is always doubting and questioning yourself. And maybe the habit is fear of intimacy. I don't know. Where you are is where you are. And I don't want to say, we're working on this one issue, because all of us are different. All of us are working on different issues in our lives. But the process for creating change is the same. And the process is going to start with resistance. You're going to get go look in your website, your You Bloom website, and you'll see underneath these series, you'll see additional videos. One of them is the 4 changes, the 4 steps in change, 4 phases. And the first one is, we have this excitement, we have this enthusiasm, we have this idea, we're inspired, we want to go in and be a better person. So the first part of the process of change is that we have this kind of idea, we have this excitement. But then as soon as we start implementing that idea, boom, everything goes into chaos. Why? Because there's gonna be resistance. So that's, and actually in the series, we call that storming. That storming process is the resistant process. You're going to resist change, even if it's good change. That's just the way it works. So we've given you a tool how to overcome that resistance, how to deal with that resistance. That's what this is. This is concretizing your resistance. So when you have that voice of doubt or insecurity in your head, and you've been practicing your intuition, and your intuition saying, hey, I'm safe, or I need to do this, I need to move forward, I need to get a divorce, or I need to stay married, or whatever it is your intuition is telling you. When you feel the resistance to that, like, no, 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 don't do it, that's your old pattern wanting to stay in play. So what do I do? What do I do with that old pattern? How do I deal with that? Because I feel the intuition, I feel the truth of I need to move forward. I want to grow. I don't want to be stuck anymore. I'm done being stuck, please. But every time I start to move forward, I feel this resistance. No, no, you can't. It's not going to work, or it's going to fail, or you're going to get hurt, or whatever the resistance is. How do I deal with that? How do I deal with the resistance? That's what this exercise is all about. It's helping you concretize that existence. And then deal with it. And the way we talked about it, it is helping you see that resistance as kind of a separate thing. So here you are, you've decided, hey, I'm going to go on a diet. I want to lose 50 pounds. We're just using kind of a non-charged example. I want to go on a diet. I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to be healthier. I want to eat healthier. I want to live a healthier life. Cool, great. As I start to implement the patterns I know I need to implement, boom, here comes my resistance. Oh man, you should eat some more chocolate, or we really don't need to go exercise, or whatever the resistance is. By concretizing it, by setting it aside and seeing it as what it is, resistance. I'm creating a visual picture for it. I'm auditory hearing it. I'm physically kind of identifying it by creating some concrete uh, representations of that resistance. Once I've done that and I can see it, feel it, hear it as a thing, then I can start to change the way I see it, the way I hear it, where I feel it in my body. And as I make changes to that image that I've created that represents this resistance, the resistance loses power. And that fear response, or that self-doubt, or the the anxiety, or just even the feeling of I want this, I need this, I have to have this. All of those kind of things that get in the way of you creating change, we concretize them and we make them solid. Once they're solid, we can now move them and control them. But if they're not solid, they're just kind of voices in the back of your head, eh, you can't really do much about them. So that's what the exercise has been all about. And my hope is that you applied it. Because again, you information alone is not going to change you. It's you learning the information and applying the information that's going to help you create change. And so my hope is that's what this tool was used for this week and helped you move forward. Now let's go through some of the questions. I've already previewed some of the questions, and some of the questions aren't really about concretizing and aren't about how do I deal with my own self-doubts? How do I deal with questioning myself? How do I deal with my own insecurities? How do I deal with my own shame? How do I deal, with this resistance that comes up in my life? A lot of the questions are about still you're uncertain about what you do with your relationship. So let's go through and look at some of these questions and see if we can give you some answers to how to deal with your fears or your anxieties or your doubts, because that's what I'm hearing a lot in your questions. All right, let's go to question number one. I am in the roller coaster of separating, leaning towards divorce. Spouse is out of the house since March. That's a long time because this is end of August, beginning of September. And now my spouse keeps dangling the proverbial carrot. When I feel like I am coming to terms with moving forward and filing out the divorce papers, he suddenly will text me with apologies and promises to provide. But then the next day or so later, he is triggered and back to addiction. In Dr. Skinner's clip on navigating divorce, he mentions the roller coaster it can feel like. How do I know if what I am feeling is intuition versus depression? Really not wanting divorce, but really not wanting to continue in the hamster wheel that I am on either. When I am such an emotional mess, it is difficult to see clearly what I need versus what I want. Now, I'm going to disagree with you, and forgive me because I don't mean to be offensive. How dare you disagree with me? Wait, this is what I feel. I think you know what you need and what you want. And I don't think that those are separate things. I don't think those are separate at all. I think they're the same thing. And I don't think your confusion is about you. I think your confusion is about him. He is doing what is called the dance of intimacy. He is afraid to be close to anybody. And unfortunately, he's in a relationship with you, so you get to live with it. But he's afraid to be close. What that means is there's a certain level of connection that he is comfortable with. And if it gets closer than this, that feels uncomfortable. And then he has to pull away. So he's always doing this dance with you. What that means is that um, when you start to get close, building intimacy and connection, real intimacy and connection, he gets anxious because he has an anxious avoidant emotional template. That's how he deals with relationships. And then what's he do? He runs away because he always needs to maintain this distance. This is the distance of intimacy that he's willing to tolerate. So when you connect, he avoids, right? Makes sense? Now, what happens though when you say, I'm done, and you disconnect? Well, he's not comfortable with that. He doesn't like that. So what does he do? He approaches because he always wants to maintain this level of distance or closeness, whatever, however you want to define it. But anyway, this is what's comfortable for him. And so when you pull away, he approaches. That's the dance. And so you're always doing this. This is the roller coaster that you're describing. That you'll approach, he pulls away, and then you pull away and he approaches because he's always trying to maintain this level of intimacy. This is all he can tolerate. Now, you're confused by that because it seems like on the outside a double message, but it's not. It's absolutely consistent. This is the level of intimacy he can handle. He cannot handle anything more. He can't handle anything closer. He doesn't also like anything farther apart. This is the level of intimacy that he wants to maintain. Now, it's not confusing. It's very clear. This is what he's willing to live with. Here's the question. What are you willing to live with? Your confusion comes from him. You're seeing him doing this back and forth thing based on level of intimacy that he can tolerate, and you're confused. You like the good him, and you don't like the bad him. Well, your problem is this: you're basing your decision on what he's doing. So when he approaches, you're like, "Oh yeah, I'm all hopeful," and I'm like, "Oh cool, we're gonna create intimacy." No, you're not. No, you're not. No, 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 no. No, he's just seeing you retreat, and he's wanting to close the gap a little bit. Um, you got to make a decision based on what you want, not based on what he's doing, because that's where your confusion is. Because he's doing two different things. This guy, this guy you're married to, has a good side and a bad side. And you have to decide that you are willing to live with both. That's where you're stuck. Because you like the good side and you're willing to be married to the good side, but you don't like the bad side and you don't want to be married to the bad side. But what you're kind of in denial about in your head is that he's both. If you can't accept that he is both of these things and that this is the level of intimacy that he's willing to tolerate, and accept that if this level of intimacy doesn't work for you because you need this, then this isn't the guy for you. It's plain, it's simple, it's clear as day. What you need and what you want are the same. You want intimacy, and you have to come to terms with this idea that he only has a certain level of intimacy that he can tolerate. And if that level of intimacy that he can tolerate isn't working for you, you got to go. because this is not working for you. It's not who you are. And if you can't accept that he's good and bad, that he's both of these things, um, then this isn't going to work for you either. So it's a pretty clear decision. What do you want? Not what is he doing today or what is he going to do tomorrow? Because I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to change. The roller coaster isn't you, the roller coaster's him. He's the roller coaster. And the only reason you're on that roller coaster is because you're connected to whatever he's doing. Get off the roller coaster. Get off of what he's doing. Focus on what you both need and want. They're not different things. They're the same thing. Focus on what you need and want. If you need and want intimacy, awesome. That's great. Go for it. He can't provide it because he hasn't been able to. And you playing games with yourself of, oh, well, maybe he can, maybe he can, maybe he can, isn't useful. It's you on the roller coaster. So I think you have the answers. I think you need to listen to what your heart is already telling you, but you are afraid. And if I was going to use this exercise that we're talking about, I would use the concretizing exercise to deal with that part of you that has doubt, self doubt. You know what you need and want. You know what level of intimacy you can accept. You know what's working for you and what's not working for you. That's not in question. Um, but you have doubts because he's all over the board and he's going to be all over the board because, again, he's doing this dance of intimacy. He's trying to play these games with you where he always maintains this level of closeness. Nothing too close, nothing too far away. He's always trying to maintain this. If you don't like this, which is totally your choice, then you got to go. I mean, it's just that simple. But don't create self-doubt for yourself like, is it me? What's going on? You know, why am I pushing him away? Whatever that may self-doubt may look like. That's where I would say use the concretizing exercise to deal with that part of you that is full of self-doubt. Concretize your self-doubt. See him or her as a person. Give them a face, give them a name, find their location in your body, listen to their voice, learn to hear them. Once you've concretized them into an image, then begin to change that self-doubt image and shrink them and move them and do all the things that we learned to do so that self-doubt doesn't have control over you because right now you're trying to create change, but the resistance, the self doubt is your resistance. It is getting in the way of you doing what you already know. I think you know what you want. So do it, do it, do it, do it. I totally support you. I think you're right in your decision. Now you got to deal and concretize your self doubt because that's what's getting in the way. All right. Hope that was helpful, useful, and let's move on. All right. In real life, even though all this, I am known as strong, decisive, logical, and even wise. I say that to try to explain what feels like weakness and confusion in working through the post D Day everything. Um, I am married to someone who the entire time we were married bargained about what a good marriage we had, bragged about what a good marriage we had. Spoke very critically about the moral compass of just about everyone else. Um, He repeated the benefits of everyone's trusting in his stellar character at work, church, friends, neighbor, and just totally had an outward life that was polar opposite of what his addictive life was really, um, which was our entire marriage and before. Now, since D Day, there's an aspect of this that continues. He has steadfastly said he is 100% committed to every aspect of healing, and he is perfectly checking the boxes of outward things that he's been asked to do. At the same time, oh my, the lying he has done during this time, the drip, drip of disclosure is maddening, confusing, and circuiting. This continues gets brought up to our counselor, and we go over the basics again and again. So, the question that brought me to this course: how do I navigate my healing while staying open to healing with my husband and continually shift uh, and deal with the continually shifting sand of his healing? I love the title Concretizing Resistance, and I feel good about me when the different world of struggling is to stay open to working this out in our marriage and to working out in the marriage that he says he totally wants and I am committed to too. Any help or insight would be appreciated. Um, I think I hope you know at this point, words are irrelevant. Words are words. I, if I were in the situation where you are, I wouldn't listen to the words of my spouse, um, because it's been proven again and again and again and again that the words cannot be trusted. The only thing I'd look at, the only thing I'd focus on is actions. Is he taking the actions that he needs to take? Is he doing what he needs to do in his recovery? If so, awesome. Um, it sounds like from your counseling sessions that he understands the concepts and understands the basics because you guys have to go over them again and again and again. But it sounds like the actions aren't as consistent as his words are. And that's where you're stuck. You're stuck with uncertainty and self doubt, like our last question was, um, because there seems to be two of him. He's schizophrenic. He's a mask. He's an image. He's in some ways a manipulator, and he has this external face that he likes to put on things, but the internal doesn't seem to match. Now, your question is actually a simple one. Your question is not, let me start with that, is not deciding which is true. And that's where you're struggling. You're like, okay, do I believe this one? Do I believe this one? Which one is real? Is this real? Is this real? And you're spinning in confusion because you don't know which of these two sides are truly who he is. The answer is simple. He's both. That's who he is. He's a master manipulator. He's a facade. He's a con artist. And he's a addict that's in some ways wanting recovery. Question you need to ask yourself is, can you live with both these sides of himself? I think you're secretly hoping that one will emerge to be the truth and the other will kind of fade away. And then you'll go, oh, I have my answer. Either he'll merge to be the manipulator and you'll go, oh, he's the manipulator. he's, just full of BS. I'm not willing to live with that. Oh, clear answer. Thank you. And move on. Or he'll emerge as this addict who's willing and wanting to work on his addiction and face it and do the steps and really, really do the steps, um, and then become sober. And if that happens, then you'll go, oh, okay, there's my answer. Thank you. I can move forward with this guy because this guy is dealing with his addiction. That'd be nice if one of those two would emerge as the truth. The messy part is they're both the truth. And there's not going to be a magic day when one finally emerges to be the one and the other one's going to disappear. This guy is both. And you need to decide, you, looking at yourself, what you need, what you want, what works for you. You need to make a choice. Can I live with both sides of this guy? If you can't, no shame, no blame, no judgment. That's totally your choice. You need to move on. If you can go, okay, I can live, with there's goodness in him, and I can live with that level of goodness in him. And I also acknowledge that there's this facade and fake side of him, and I can tolerate that. I can accept, that he's not perfect and he's got this flawed character, and I can live with that. Great. If you can live with that, great. Live with that. Where you're gonna get stuck is in the fantasy. The fantasy, the lie, the hope, the false hope that this side is gonna disappear. That he's gonna finally wake up in counseling and go, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? I gotta stop doing this." And he's gonna wake up and someday magically turn away against that other side of himself. Maybe it'll happen, but I just got to go with what is. And what is today, he's both. And if you want to be married to him today, you have to make a choice. Can I live with both or can I not live with both? But it's false hope to wonder if he's going to be one or the other. He's both. At this moment, he's both. If at some point in time he works on his recovery and he changes, that's kind of up to him. That's on him. Um, maybe you can get that answer, that clarity that you want, because he's clearly choosing to become one side or the other. But that's on him. You can't stand around, wait around for that to happen. That may take years. That may never happen, I think. So you got to decide, what do you want? Are you willing to live with both sides of this guy, or are you tired of both sides and this isn't going to work for you? Awesome. Okay. You decide what works for you. But again, you got to look at you and ask that hard question. Okay. Uh, the question starts with, okay, since you told us to ask, semicolon, I'm going to ask. To what other feelings, thoughts, and situations do you think these exercises would apply well? Well, the answer is every circumstance, every situation. Um, our brain is a habit machine. It creates habits, it creates patterns, it lives off patterns. Um, Simple example, me talking to you. If I had to think about every word I was going to say and every syllable and how that was going to all flow and put together and the syntax and all of that stuff, I wouldn't be able to speak to you. And in fact, you may notice that sometimes, because of my dyslexia, when I read questions, I pause and struggle a little bit because I really have to concentrate and think about it. It's not automated. That's one of my favorite definitions of um, dyslexia, is that written language never naturalizes. It never becomes an automated pattern for people with dyslexia. And they always have to concentrate and really focus and really make every sound out every word. And that's hard and it's slow and it really kind of crappy. But it's a great example of how when the brain is working efficiently, it's automated. And when the brain doesn't work efficiently, it's not automated. So brain loves to create automation, loves to create patterns. Now, that's great when we're talking, driving, walking. I mean, there's a million ways that your brain automates things. And that's all great. And that's all that you're really important. However, whenever you want to create change, whenever you want to take a pattern, an automated pattern, and shift it, that's where you're going to have problems because you're going to experience huge amounts of resistance. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the level of change that you're creating. You're going to feel resistance on any level of change. If you try to change when you go to bed, when you wake up, um, how you get dressed, when you're putting on a shirt or a blouse, which arm do you put in first? All of those are patterns that you don't even know you have, but you do. And if you consciously said, hey, I want to change one of these patterns, you're going to feel resistance. Everything, anything, anything you try to change, good or bad, you're going to feel resistance. Is that a problem? No. It's a pain. Yeah. Okay. I gotta fight through resistance on everything. Yeah, that's true. But this exercise is going to be a useful tool to help you do that because your brain's going to throw up some kind of no, don't stop. You can't. It won't work. This isn't going to work. Nothing's going to work. It's going to throw up all kinds of doubts. That's normal. That's going to happen. Now, if you could be conscious of those doubts, if you could concretize those doubts, if you can make those doubts uh, a visual, auditory, physical thing, and then begin to start shifting those doubts, you'll be able to get control over those doubts and the resistance that you're feeling for creating change. So, how can you use this in your life? Everywhere. Everywhere you want to create change, you will need to use this exercise to be able to deal with the resistance. So, you want to have a more loving marriage? Believe it or not, you're going to have resistance about that. If you want to get close to your spouse, believe it or not, you're going to feel resistance about that, especially given the history you guys have been through. So, it really doesn't matter where the change is occurring. Um, Trying to be a single person, living on your own, trying to be married, it doesn't matter which direction you move. There's a part of you, as painful as this may sound, and I apologize for this bad news, but there's a part of you that doesn't want to change. You're stuck on this. We talked about the roller coaster in the beginning. You're stuck in this roller coaster, and there's a part of you, unfortunately, that's become habituated to it. It's become a pattern, it's become your life. Being on that roller coaster is who you are now. And I know you hate it, and I know, you say, "I don't want it, I don't want it." I get it, I get it. But it's who you are. It's where you are. It's not a lot different than the addict who says, "Oh, I hate this addiction, I hate this addiction, I hate this addiction, I don't want this addiction." Blah, blah, blah. The addiction is who they are. And when they try to stop the addiction, they're going to experience a ton of resistance from their own brain because their brain is habituated to that addiction. That addiction is who they are. And a great change in that addiction will bring up tons of resistance. So, in some ways, you're codependent. In some ways, you're addicted to this dysfunction because it's just become a part of you over time. It just has. Are you a bad person? No. I totally understand where it comes from. It comes from the situation you're in. You've been cycling in this pattern for so long. It's wired into your brain. Now, changing that pattern and getting out of this dysfunctional pattern, or maybe even the codependent pattern you're in with your spouse, is great. It's good. I think you absolutely should do it. However, you're going to feel resistance. You're going to feel pushback. There's a part of your brain that wants to stay, as miserable as you are, wants to stay stuck. That sounds crazy. That sounds weird, but it's true. It's absolutely true. You hate the roller coaster. You hate the ambivalence, but here you are, week after week, month after month, and for some of you, year after year, in the same pattern. No matter how much you say you hate it, no matter how much you say you don't want it, no matter how much you say you want it to change, here you are, doing it again and again and again. That's because your brain has habituated to it. It's become a pattern. To change the pattern, you will feel resistance, period. And how to deal with that resistance is the name of this exercise: concretizing it, shifting it. So there's your answer. Everywhere you want to create change, you need to practice concretizing the resistance that you're going to feel in any area of your life that creates change. That's, I guess, a big answer, but it's the answer. All right, next question. I echo the above question. How do I apply this exercise in different types of situations? For example, when we suddenly find ourselves triggered, whether it is a big or small trigger. Well, again, same process. Um, trigger, I, I don't like that word trigger because it's overuse. It's just kind of like generic these days. It's just splattered everywhere. It doesn't mean anything. So when I hear you say triggered, what I hear is fear. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's self doubt. See, the word trigger is just so broad and vague. Nobody really knows what it means, because when each one of us get triggered, what we're talking about is that we're having an emotional response. Some of us may be afraid. Some of us may be angry. Some of us may be flooded with shame. Some of us may be um, full of self doubt. Trigger is just too generic. What you're saying is, when you're triggered, is that you're having a strong emotional reaction in any given moment. And what elicits that strong emotional reaction could be a million things. Could be a song, could be a place, it could be a smell, it could be a word, it could be almost anything. You're going to be triggered. You're going to have strong emotional reactions because you're in a highly emotional state. It just is what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it's not right, it's not wrong. Now, using this exercise means you being able to step in and go, oh, look, there's my self doubt. Oh, look, there's my fear. Oh, look, there's my shame. Oh, look, there's my feelings of being unloved and unlovable. So, what emotional reaction you're having when you're triggered is irrelevant. The process, that's what this concretizing exercise is. It's a process. It's a process dealing with any of those emotions. It's all the same. The process is all the same. The emotions you're dealing with is different. So if you're dealing with a lot of rage, concretizing that rage would be, okay, let's look at what that rage looks like. Let's put a face to it. Let's feel the body location of that. Okay, let's see if we can hear really what the rage is saying, what the rage is really all about. Once I've concretized those kind of things, then I can begin to shift them and begin to change them. Okay, anger self, let's, instead of having you right here in my face all the time, because this is kind of overwhelming for me, thank you very much, I'm going to move my angry self. I'm going to put my angry self over here. I'm going to put this angry self over in this box. So it's just not in my face and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And it makes it just a little bit easier to contain that anger. And now that I've contained the anger, do I want to ignore it? No. Do I want to reject it? No. It's useful. It's part of who you are. It's your truth. Um, so I want to deal with it, but dealing with it right here in my face, that's a little bit hard. I need to concretize it. I need to move it over here so I can deal with it a little bit easier. That's what concretizing is. It's just taking this resistance that's going to come up for you when you create change and beginning to play with it, shift it, manipulate it so it doesn't have control over you, but you have control over it. So again, the feeling itself that comes up is irrelevant. Um, it's a process. Concretizing is a process. And when you're feeling triggered, whatever feeling, emotion that may be for you, concretizing will be a way to help you begin to deal with that feeling. So it doesn't control you, but you control it. All right. Again, I hope that was useful, helpful. I'm Brett with you, Bloom, and thanks again for being a part of this process. And I hope to see you and talk to you soon. All right. Take care.